Introduction: A Daring Adventure or Nothing the Confidence Gap, From Fear to Freedom. Written by Dr. Russ Harris. If only you had more confidence, how would your life be different? Whether you call it lack of confidence, fear of failure, performance anxiety, or self-doubt, the chances are it's cost you dearly in your life. Take a moment to consider. What have you given up? What have you missed out on? What opportunities have you lost because of it? Over the years, I've worked with literally thousands of people who have put their hopes, dreams, and ambitions on hold because they don't have enough confidence. And the sad thing is, this lack of confidence is not due to any fault of their own. It is certainly not because of stupidity or laziness or negative thinking or a deprived childhood or a chemical imbalance in the brain. It is simply because they do not know the rules of the confidence game. Yes, confidence is a game, a skillful psychological game, and unfortunately, our society gives us the wrong rules to play it. Over the years, you may have read articles, bought self-help books, watched TV shows, and listened to well-meaning advice. I'd guess that some of those ideas worked quite well, at least for a little while. But I'd also be willing to bet that they didn't ultimately give you what you wanted. So, are you open to something new, something challenging? Are you willing to try playing with a radically different set of rules? I'm not going to churn out the same old stuff you've heard a million times before. Visualization, self-hypnosis, positive affirmations. Instead, I'll show you why it's not your fault that what you've been trying isn't working. Now, just for a moment, stop listening and notice what thoughts you are having. Throughout this book, I'll be asking you to do this repeatedly, to increase your awareness of what your mind is doing. Are you noticing thoughts such as, "How did this happen? Where did I go wrong?" The truth is, it's almost impossible that you could have grown up in our modern society without learning the wrong rules. I don't want to lay it all out for you right now, before we've even reached the first chapter. Rather, I invite you to treat this book as an adventure, a voyage of discovery. On your journey, you'll discover a revolutionary new approach to maximizing human potential, known as acceptance and commitment training, or ACT. You'll learn to develop a mindset known as psychological flexibility, a powerful mental state that enables you to respond effectively to fear, anxiety, and self-doubt. Confidence is a topic that's very close to my heart because for many, many years I didn't have it. As a teenager and in my 20s, I was incredibly anxious in social situations. Long before I reached the legal drinking age, I started relying on alcohol to help me cope. I was so afraid of rejection. I never asked girls to go out with me unless I was drunk, and they usually only said yes if they were drunk too. I know what it's like to lack self-confidence. I've given up on many things that were important to me. I've missed out on important areas of life. And the good news is, I've been able to learn and change. So I trust the principles in this book not only because they are solidly backed by science, but because they have worked so well for me in my life. If you're open to new ideas and willing to learn some new skills, then the odds are overwhelming that you'll be successful. However, not surprisingly, like everything that improves your life, this will take time and effort. We wouldn't expect to become a good skier or painter or dancer simply by reading books about it. And the same holds true for developing genuine confidence. At school, you probably learned about Helen Keller. Her most famous saying is this: "Life is a daring adventure or nothing." Given these two options for your life, a daring adventure or nothing, which do you choose? If you're ready now to set out in a brave new direction, curious about what you will discover, and willing to make room for the discomfort that may arise, then what are you waiting for? Chapter 1. Why bother? So what's in this book for you? On one level, the answer is obvious. You want more confidence. But I want you to dig a bit deeper, because confidence is not the end of the journey, is it? Presumably, you want that confidence in order to achieve something, to make changes that will improve your life. Imagine that you magically have all the confidence you ever could have hoped for, but nothing in your life changes. You feel supremely confident, but you continue to act in exactly the same way as before, in every aspect of your life. There are no changes in your relationships, your work, your health, your social life, or your recreational activities. The only thing different is that you now feel confident. Would you be satisfied with that outcome? I've asked hundreds of people that question, and no one has ever answered yes. This is hardly surprising. We don't want confidence just for the sake of it. We want it for a purpose. So I ask you now, in a world where you had unlimited confidence, how would you behave differently? How would you treat others differently? What sort of things would you start doing? And what would you stop doing? Your answers to these questions are vitally important. They will provide the values and goals for your ongoing journey. And because so many people are unclear about the difference between values and goals, let's take a few moments to quickly explore it. Values are desired qualities of ongoing action. In other words, your values describe how you want to behave as a human being, how you want to act on an ongoing basis, what you want to stand for in life. Values can never be completed or ticked off the list as done. They are ongoing. Goals are desired outcomes. In other words, goals are what you want to get, complete, possess, or achieve. Goals are not ongoing. The moment you achieve a goal, you can tick it off the list. You can think of values as a compass. You use them to set a direction and help you stay on track during the journey. Acting on your values is like traveling west. No matter how far west you travel, there's always further to go. You never reach a place called west. In contrast, goals are like the places you want to visit while you're traveling west. This bridge, that river, this mountain. Many people are completely lost in something I call the confidence gap. It's that place we get stuck when fear gets in the way of our dreams and ambitions. You know you're stuck in the confidence gap if you believe something like this. I can't achieve my goals, perform at my peak, do the things I want to do, or behave like the person I want to be until I feel more confident. The more tightly you hold on to this belief, the more it will hold you back. Why? Because it relies on the wrong definition of confidence. There are two definitions of confidence. First, a feeling of certainty or assurance. Second, an act of trust or reliance. The second definition is much older. The word confidence is derived from the Latin words com, meaning with, and fider, meaning to trust. When we trust or rely on someone, whether ourselves or others, we often do not have feelings of absolute certainty or assurance. In fact, generally, the more there is at stake, the more we tend to have feelings of fear and anxiety. Think of Nelson Mandela. He famously said, "Of course I was afraid. I can't pretend that I'm brave and that I can beat the whole world." However, Mandela knew that if he wanted to be a great leader, he had to hide his fear. He acted with confidence, an act of trust, even though he did not feel confident. Mandela didn't play by the rule. I have to feel confident before I do what matters. This is the granddaddy of all those wrong rules. If you wait for the feelings of confidence to show up before you start doing the things that are truly important to you, the chances are you're going to be waiting forever. This insight gives us the first right rule of the confidence game. Rule 1. The actions of confidence come first. The feelings of confidence come later. Now you might be asking, how do we become good at doing things so we can eventually feel confident? We follow the confidence cycle. Step 1, practice the skills. Step 2, apply them effectively. Step 3, assess the results. Step 4, modify as needed. And then repeat the cycle. Just for a moment, think about all the things you can confidently do today. Things you do so fluidly and naturally, you rarely even stop to consider them. Walking, reading, brushing your teeth. How did you learn to do this? You had to practice, 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 continually assessing the results and modifying what you'd done. Developing genuine confidence requires work, or rather, it requires committed action. Only through committed action, stepping out of our comfort zones and doing what truly matters deep in our hearts, will we experience authentic confidence. Chapter 2. The good old days, it's coming for you. Thump, thump, thump. The ground beneath your feet is trembling. Thump, thump, thump. The beast raises its mighty trunk into the air and lets out a blood-curdling bellow. It's 3 times your height, covered with shaggy brown hair, has legs the size of tree trunks and 2 enormous tusks protruding from its mouth. It's angry, and it's running at you. So what happens next? You'll find out shortly. First, let's backtrack to the granddaddy of all those wrong rules for the confidence game. I have to feel confident before I do what matters. This rule appeals to common sense, because it's often much easier to take action if you're already feeling confident. But clinging tightly to this belief means you will spend a lot of time, effort, and energy trying to control your feelings. You will try very hard to eliminate fear and anxiety and replace them with calm and assurance. Have you ever found a technique for controlling your feelings that works when you are in a truly challenging situation, stepping out of your comfort zone and facing your fears? I know you haven't, because it's impossible. There is no way to undo billions of years of evolution that have hardwired your body to respond to such situations with something called the fight or flight response. To explain what this is, let's return to that woolly mammoth. When a mammoth is charging straight towards you, you really only have 2 options. Option 1, run away very, very fast. Option 2, stay your ground and fight very, very hard. In order to fight or take flight, you need power, strength, and stamina. Fortunately, your body provides exactly what you need. It floods with adrenaline, your reflexes sharpen, and your muscles tense for action. This is the fight or flight response. It is immediate, automatic, and essential for survival. Now, let's imagine you're a cave dweller. You can't stay in your happy little valley all the time. Every so often, you'll need to go out looking for food. The further you travel from your old familiar territory, the more danger you're in. At the slightest hint of a threat, a sudden movement, an odd smell, your fight or flight response kicks in. This is a good thing. Now you are ready to survive. Things haven't changed all that much since those ancestral days. If we want to grow and develop as human beings, we have to step out of our old familiar territory, our comfort zone, and venture into the unknown. And each time we leave that familiar territory, our fight or flight response will be triggered. This is completely natural. There is no way that you will be able to switch off your fight or flight response. No way to instill yourself with feelings of absolute certainty and assurance. Of course, in everyday language, we don't usually talk about the fight or flight response. You've probably never heard someone say, "I'm giving a talk next week and I'm having a fight or flight response." You're far more likely to hear talk of fear, anxiety, nerves, or stressing out. Fear has many different names. I've worked with CEOs, soldiers, and surgeons who initially refused to admit to having fear because they saw it as a personal failing. They could admit to being stressed or tense, but not to being anxious or afraid. This is hardly surprising. In our society, the brainwashing starts very young. When you were a little kid and you were feeling frightened, what did adults say to you? "Don't be silly, don't be such a baby, big boys don't cry." The message is, fear equals immaturity or weakness. These messages are powerfully reinforced by pop culture. In virtually every movie, the heroes are fearless. James Bond, Superman, Wonder Woman. The only time James Bond sweats is when a laser beam is about to slice him in half. But when the whole world is about to blow up, all he does is smile and crack a joke. With all of this conditioning, it's hardly surprising we grow up with a negative attitude towards fear. This is a great shame, because fear is like a powerful fuel. Once we know how to handle it, we can use it to our advantage. You will not develop true confidence by trying to eliminate fear, nerves, or anxiety. However, you will develop true confidence once you learn how to change your relationship with fear. Chapter 3. True or False? Ready for a little quiz? Please answer true or false to each of the following statements. Albert Einstein was a below-average school student. You only use 10% of your brain. Positive self-statements such as "I will succeed" or "I am lovable" are a good way to boost low self-esteem. Most people answer true for most or all of these statements. This is only to be expected. After all, countless books and TV programs tell you these things as if they were hard facts. As you may have guessed from my tone, all these frequently quoted facts are actually false. Yes, Einstein struggled with French, but he excelled in math and physics. As for the 10% brain myth, complete and utter nonsense. You use 100% of your brain every day. And what about positive affirmations? Science suggests the very opposite of what we've been told. A groundbreaking 2009 study showed that people with low self-esteem actually feel worse after repeating positive self-statements. Why? Because when they say, "I am a lovable person," their mind shouts back, "No, you're not." So, what's this got to do with confidence? It shows that we are all full of it. We walk around with heads full of misleading information. As Mark Twain put it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. With that in mind, let's bust 4 specific myths about fear. Myth 1. Fear is a sign of weakness. If you believe this, consider Lance Armstrong or Hugh Jackman. Armstrong said, "I have a huge phobia around failure." Jackman said he's always felt that if you back down from a fear, the ghost of it never goes away. The fact is, when you step out of your comfort zone, you will feel fear. That is not weakness, it is a sign of normality. Myth 2. Fear impairs performance. Top performers know this isn't true. They experience the fight or flight response just like you, but they call it being pumped or having an adrenaline rush. They know that fear is a powerful source of energy that can be harnessed for your benefit. Myth 3. Fear holds you back. It is not fear that holds people back. It is their attitude towards fear that keeps them stuck. The tighter you hold on to the idea that fear is bad, the more stuck you will be. Myth 4. Confidence is the absence of fear. This brings us to the second rule of the confidence game. Genuine confidence is not the absence of fear. It is a transformed relationship with fear. So, are you ready to stop regarding fear as an enemy and turn it into a powerful source of energy? If so, the first step is learning how to handle that double-edged sword, the human mind. Chapter 4. It ain't necessarily so. What's it like for you? Is it like a voice inside your head? You'll fail. You don't have what it takes. You'll get rejected. You'll screw it up. It could all go horribly wrong, or you're not ready for it yet. Better put it off until later. Or is it more like a sensation in your body? Churning stomach, clenched teeth, tight throat, pounding heart, restless legs, tense muscles, tight chest, difficulty breathing, dry mouth and slash or sweaty hands. Whatever you prefer to call it. Lack of confidence, fear of failure, anxiety, nerves, or tension. It boils down to a few basic elements, which are described by psychologists as private experiences. The most common private experiences that the human brain and nervous system emits are these. E. Emotions, M. Memories, I. Images, T. Thoughts, S. Sensations. So usually, When someone talks about a lack of self-confidence, they are referring to emotions such as fear and anxiety, memories of past failures, images of things going badly, thoughts about failure, and sensations such as a racing heart or dry mouth. In this book, for the sake of simplicity, I am going to lump all these private experiences into two categories. Memories, thoughts, and images I will simply refer to as thoughts. Emotions and sensations I will call feelings. To develop lasting confidence, we need to know three things: how to handle our thoughts and feelings effectively, how to take control of our actions, even when our thoughts and feelings are negative or uncomfortable, how to engage fully in whatever we are doing, irrespective of the thoughts and feelings we are having. Let's begin by considering, what are thoughts? Thoughts are words and pictures inside our head. No matter how complex our thoughts may be, they are all constructed from two basic building blocks: words and images. Check this out for yourself. For the next minute, stop listening, close your eyes, and simply notice what your mind is doing. You should notice either some words, which you hear like a voice or see like writing, or some pictures, or a combination of both. Please try this now for 1 minute. So what did you notice? You've undoubtedly noticed that your mind is very good at generating words and pictures. Consider for a moment. How many thoughts does your mind create in the space of just one day? Hundreds upon thousands, if not millions. And it never runs out, does it? It's always show and tell time for the mind. And you've undoubtedly also noticed that your mind has a tendency to be negative. As I said in Chapter 1, that's perfectly natural and normal. The human mind is quick to judge, criticize, compare, point out what's not good enough, and tell us what needs to be improved. And although our culture bombards us with messages about the importance of positive thinking, the simple fact is this: the human mind has evolved to think negatively. To understand why this is, let's return to our primitive ancestors. In those days, the number one job that your mind had to do was to stop you getting killed. So how does a mind do that? It looks around for danger. It constantly scans the environment, trying to spot or anticipate anything that can possibly hurt you. If there ever was an early human who went through life in a fearless and carefree manner, thinking positively that nothing would ever go wrong, they would have been eaten, trampled, or murdered pretty quickly, long before they had a chance to reproduce. You and I evolved from the cavemen and cavewomen who were always on the lookout, always alert for danger. So our modern brains are always trying to anticipate what could hurt us or harm us, always trying to predict what might go wrong. No wonder we all have so many doubts, worries, concerns, and fears of failure. This is not a sign of a weak or defective mind. It's a perfectly natural byproduct of evolution. And that is why, even if we diligently practice positive thinking every single day of our lives, we can't stop our minds from generating negative thoughts. Scientists have studied the brain extensively. And guess what? They have never located one single part of the brain that is redundant. Every part of it serves a function. The latest discoveries in the world of neuroscience make it very clear that the brain does not eliminate or eradicate old neural pathways. Rather, it lays down new ones on top of the old ones. It's a bit like learning to speak a new language. No matter how fluent you become in the new language, your old language doesn't disappear. No matter how well you learn to speak Spanish, you won't lose the ability to speak English. Even the greatest Zen masters have negative thoughts, and so do the greatest positive psychologists. The world-famous psychologist Martin Seligman admits that even though he has spent the last 20 years teaching people to think optimistically, as soon as he finds himself in a challenging situation, the first thing that pops into his head is a pessimistic thought. Our minds are pretty amazing. They help us plan for the future, analyze our world, communicate, and invent. That's the bright side. The dark side of the mind is that it's quick to criticize and judge harshly. It conjures up scary stories about the future and dredges up painful memories from the past. Which is why, in ACT, we say, the mind is a double-edged sword. Just as the word lamb pops up when we encounter the phrase Mary had a little, negative thoughts will pop up whenever we encounter a genuinely challenging situation. Like it or not, as soon as we even think about stepping out of our comfort zones, our minds are likely to tell us those same old stories. You'll fail. You'll screw it up. You're not ready. You're not good enough. We can bundle all these thoughts up into one big story. I can't do it. So if you can't stop your mind from telling you the I can't do it story, then what are you supposed to do when this story shows up? The three most common solutions you'll encounter are: challenge the thoughts, replace them with positive thoughts, or distract yourself. If you have tried them, you've undoubtedly recognized that they require a lot of effort and energy, and even if they give you temporary relief, your mind just keeps on coming up with new ones. So what's the alternative? Personally, I wouldn't recommend any of these strategies. Therefore, you're going to learn a radically different way of responding to negative thoughts. But first, let's consider a very important question. Are negative thoughts really a problem? How many times have you heard that negative thoughts are bad, problematic, or harmful? That winners think positively and losers think negatively. The most extreme version takes the line that your negative thoughts are so harmful that they will actually manifest in reality. ACT starts from the assumption that negative thoughts are not inherently problematic. Negative thoughts only become problematic if we get all caught up in them, give them all our attention, treat them as the gospel truth, allow them to control us, or get into a fight with them. The technical term for responding to our thoughts in this way is fusion. Why fusion? Well, think of two sheets of metal fused together. There is no separation between them. Similarly, when I talk about being fused with your thoughts, I mean there is no separation from them. In a state of fusion, we are completely entangled by our thoughts. But when we diffuse from our thoughts, when we separate from them and realize that they are nothing more or less than words and pictures, then they have little or no effect on us. In the next chapter, you will discover for yourself that no matter how negative our thoughts are, they do not have to become problematic. You will discover that there is no need to fight with them, challenge them, suppress them, or allow them to control you. All you need do is learn how to get yourself. Off the Hook Chapter 5. Off the hook, Joe Simpson was freezing cold and in terrible agony. His right leg was broken, the knee completely shattered, and his climbing partner had left him for dead at the bottom of a huge crevasse. He did not believe he was going to make it out alive. And yet, against all the odds, Joe managed to crawl out of the crevasse and make his way back to base camp. Throughout his ordeal, Joe was bombarded by negative thoughts. He didn't have a head full of positive thoughts such as, "I will make it no matter what." The odds were so overwhelmingly against him, he naturally believed he was going to die. But he did not let those thoughts stop him. He kept taking action. Joe's story serves as a powerful reminder that negative thoughts need not hold us back. We don't have to wait until we're feeling all positive and optimistic. We can take action, even if our minds say we can't. Think to yourself over and over, "I can't lift my arm. I can't lift my arm," and as you're thinking it, lift your arm up. You see, you can lift your arm up even when your mind says that you can't. We can learn the art of getting off the hook. Have you ever seen a fish struggling to escape from a fishing line? Once it has swallowed that hook, it has no capacity to unhook itself. In ACT, we talk about getting hooked by our thoughts. Our minds throw us thought after thought, inviting us to take the bait. And if we bite, we get hooked. Fortunately, we can readily learn to unhook ourselves. When you start thinking about making important changes, what sorts of things does your mind tend to say to you? Does it turn into a cheerleader? I'm guessing. Probably not. When you're staring a challenge directly in the face, your mind is more likely to say things like, "This is boring. I'm not in the mood. It's too hard. I'll do it later." What would happen if you were to get hooked by these thoughts? You'd likely stop doing what matters. Our minds are truly brilliant at coming up with reasons as to why we can't do what really matters to us. Thus, in ACT, we refer to all such thoughts as reason-giving. There are 4 common categories of reason-giving. Obstacles. Our minds point out all those obstacles and difficulties that lie in our paths. Self-judgments. Our minds tell us all those ways in which we were not up to the task. Comparisons. Our minds compare us unfavorably to others. Predictions. Our minds predict failure, rejection, or other unpleasant outcomes. Sometimes my clients protest, but these thoughts are true. They are usually surprised when I reply, "You know, in this approach, it's not about whether our thoughts are true or false. It's about whether they're helpful." This brings us to one of the most important words in this book, workability. The term workability arises from this simple question. Is what you are doing working to help you create a richer, fuller, more meaningful life? If the answer is yes, then what you are doing is workable. If the answer is no, then what you are doing is unworkable. We don't need to debate whether a thought is true. We just ask, if I let this thought dictate my actions, will it help me to lead the life I want? So how do we unhook? We use diffusion techniques. Here is a simple one. I'm having the thought that. Bring to mind a thought that hooks you, like I'm a loser. Now replay that thought with this phrase in front of it. I'm having the thought that I'm a loser. Notice the difference. It gives you a little bit of distance. Here is another, singing thoughts. Silently sing your negative thought to the tune of Happy Birthday. When we hear our thoughts sung to music, it helps us to see their true nature. They are nothing more nor less than words. You can also try silly voices, hearing the thought in the voice of a cartoon character, or the computer screen technique, imagining the thought as text on a screen, changing the font and color. Whatever your mind says, no matter how provocative, nasty, or scary it may be, you can also simply reply, "Thanks, mind." In a state of fusion, our thoughts can feel like a kick in the guts. But in a state of diffusion, our thoughts are nothing more nor less than words. We don't try to deny the powerful impact that thoughts can have. We simply aim to empower you, to increase the choices available to you. Many people think diffusion is a way to get rid of negative thoughts, but it's not. Imagine your hands are your thoughts. Place them in front of your face, covering your eyes. This is fusion. You are missing out on the world around you. Now slowly lower your hands. As the gap increases, you can see the world again. Your hands, your thoughts, are still there, but they are no longer blocking your view. The purpose of diffusion is this: to be present and take effective action. If you start using diffusion techniques to try to get rid of negative thoughts, you'll soon be disappointed. Why? Because you've once again gotten stuck inside the confidence gap. You're playing by the wrong rules. I have to get rid of negative thoughts before I can behave like the person I want to be. This gives us the third rule for the confidence game. Rule 3. Negative thoughts are normal. Don't fight them, diffuse them. Improving our lives requires committed action. And if we want to become skillful at anything, we need to practice. The reason-giving machine is here to stay. It's not going to suddenly transform into your own personal cheerleader. So are you willing to practice the techniques in this chapter? The moment you notice you've been hooked, acknowledge it. Silently say to yourself, "Just got hooked." Then replay the thought using a diffusion technique. I recommend you use these techniques at least 5 times a day. The good thing is, You'll have plenty of material to practice with because your mind is never short of words. Chapter 6. Never short of words, poisonous black smoke drifts over the city. The people see it and run towards the river, thousands of them, jumping into it like rats. And those that run too slowly start dropping like flies. At least that's how they described it on the radio. On 30 October 1938, CBS Radio broadcast a program called The War of the Worlds. The first two-thirds of the show consisted of fake news bulletins. Reporters describing the Martian attacks, live from the scene. Many listeners missed the start of the show and so failed to realize that it was only a radio play. They heard the breaking news and thought the Martians really were attacking. Mass panic ensued. To listeners who knew the show was just a play, the words coming out of the radio were not a problem. But for listeners who took the words literally, the experience was terrifying. This provides a good analogy. The words inside our head are not a problem. The problem lies in the way we respond to them. If we fuse with those words, they can easily cause us difficulties. But if we diffuse, they don't. In some ways, the mind is like a radio. It's always got something to say. It's always got an opinion, an idea, a prediction, a judgment, a criticism, a comparison, or a complaint. It's like listening to talkback radio all day long. However, this similarity to a radio gives us a simple method for unhooking ourselves. It's time to revisit your life change list. Pick one of the things on that list and for a few seconds imagine starting to do it today. Now stop and notice. What is your mind doing? Is it reason-giving, telling you the "I can't do it" story? Now what if your mind really were a radio station? For many people, it would sound a little bit like this. Welcome to Radio Triple F, Fear, Flaws, and Failure. Regular bulletins on everything you need to fear, keeping you updated on all your flaws. Around-the-clock reminders about failure. We're here for you all day, every day. If this sounds a bit like your mind, good. That's a sign that you have a normal human mind. So how can we unhook ourselves? The first step is simply to notice we've been hooked. The second step is to name what's going on. A sense of humor can really help here. For example, we could say, "Aha, here's Radio Triple F broadcasting again." All diffusion techniques involve one or more of the following steps. When a thought hooks us, we can notice it, name it, neutralize it. Noticing our thoughts is always the first step. If you pause for a second and notice what your mind is doing, that opens a little space between you and your thoughts. When we name the type of thoughts we're having, that often helps us to diffuse from them. For example, if you catch yourself worrying, you may say "worrying again." If you catch yourself imagining the worst, you may say "imagining the worst." Step 3 is neutralize it. I use the word neutralize to mean take your thoughts and put them into a new context, where you can see them clearly for what they are. Nothing more than pictures and words. You might visualize the thought as a caption on a birthday card, or a slogan on a t-shirt, or graffiti on a wall. I encourage you to play with diffusion throughout the day. Remember, if we want to become good at anything, there's no getting away from the need to practice. So, as well as practicing these ultra-quick diffusion exercises, I invite you to try a longer one, called Leaves on a Stream. Imagine a gently flowing stream. Imagine there are leaves floating on the surface of the water. For the next 5 minutes, take every thought that pops into your head, whether it's a picture or a word, place it on top of a leaf and let it float on by. Do this for each and every thought, whether it is happy or sad, positive or negative. You are not aiming to get rid of the thoughts. You are aiming to step back and watch their natural flow. If your mind says, "This is silly," or "It's too hard," or "I can't do it," put those thoughts on to leaves too. If a leaf or a thought gets stuck and doesn't move on, let it stay. Don't fight with it. Just imagine. You've done it. You've taken the plunge. You've stepped out of your comfort zone and put yourself into that challenging situation. You're about to give that talk or ask that person for a date. Your fight or flight response has kicked in and your mind is now going into a tailspin. And yet, it's not a problem. Those thoughts just float on by like leaves on a stream. Because you're not investing any effort in fighting them, disputing them, or suppressing them, you can now put your energy into taking effective action. Now pause for 20 seconds and notice what your mind is telling you. Is the reason-giving machine cranking up? Is Radio Triple F doing a broadcast? If so, no surprises there. So thank your mind for those thoughts and carry on reading. Chapter 7. The Self-Esteem Trap in the Great Wall Street Crash of 1929. Bankrupt businessmen leapt from the rooftops of their buildings. And in 2009, Michael knew exactly how they felt. 1 year earlier, Michael had been the director of a hugely profitable company. But now, the global financial crisis had crippled his business, and he was now forced to sell it at a major loss. Michael was in a truly wretched state, miserable, hopeless, and defeated. When he had been doing well, he thought of himself as a winner, and not surprisingly, that made him feel good. But now the tide had turned. Now his mind kept telling him he was a loser, and that surprise, did not feel so good. Michael was painfully caught in the self-esteem trap. Our society often encourages us to think in terms of winners and losers, successes and failures. If we get hooked by the story that we're a winner, we may get to feel good about ourselves for a while. But how long does that feeling last? How long before our minds find someone else who is achieving more or being more successful than us? You may have heard of the concept of fragile self-esteem. It's something very common in successful professionals and athletes. As long as they achieve all their goals, they can hold on tightly to the "I'm a winner" story. But the moment their performance drops, and sooner or later it will, the story instantly changes to "I'm a loser." The self-esteem industry is worth a small fortune. But does high self-esteem live up to its own reputation? Does it really make us happier, healthier, and more successful? In 2003, the American Psychological Association commissioned a self-esteem task force to investigate. And what did they find? They found that high self-esteem correlates with egotism, narcissism, and arrogance. It correlates with prejudice and discrimination. And it correlates with self-deception and defensiveness when faced with honest feedback. So if trying to raise self-esteem is not worth the effort, then what's the alternative? Self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is far more important than self-esteem. Why? Because when we step out of our comfort zones, things won't always turn out the way we desire. At times, we will make mistakes and screw things up. This is a fact of life. Michael Jordan, commonly acclaimed as the greatest basketball player of all time, provides a good example. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. I've failed over and over again in my life. That is why I succeed. When we make a mistake or things go wrong, it's important to assess our actions. We want to take a good, honest look at what we did and assess it in terms of workability. But this is very different to judging ourselves. Assessing our actions is workable. Judging ourselves is not. So self-acceptance does not mean that we pay no attention to the way we behave. It simply means we let go of blanket self-judgments. Why would we do this? Because judging ourselves does not help us in any way. Is a biography of Nelson Mandela the same thing as Nelson Mandela himself? Clearly not. It is nothing more than a construction of words and pictures. The same principle holds true for all your own self-judgments and self-descriptions. The biography of you is not you. Whether your mind describes you with glowing praise or sums you up with scathing criticism, the words it uses are nothing more than words. The trick is, don't get attached to either story, the positive or the negative. Whether your mind says I'm wonderful or I'm pathetic, I'm a winner or I'm a loser, see it for what it is, just a story. What matters most in life is what you do, what you stand for, the way you behave. This is far more important than the stories you believe about yourself. This approach gives us yet another rule for the confidence game. Rule 4. Self-acceptance trumps self-esteem. Chapter 8. The rules of engagement. Imagine listening to your favorite music with your ears full of cotton wool, or watching your favorite movie wearing dark sunglasses, or eating your favorite food while your tongue is still half numb from a visit to the dentist, or having a back massage while you're wearing a thick woolen jacket. This is how we experience the world when we're all caught up in our thoughts. Remember the hands as thoughts exercise from Chapter 5. When your hands were covering your eyes, you were missing out on the world around you. But as you moved your hands away from your eyes, the world around you came into focus. You could see so much more clearly and take it all in. If we want to get the most out of life, we need to be fully present, aware, attentive, and engaged in what is happening. This involves a mindfulness skill called engagement, connecting with the world through noticing what we can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. If you want to have great sex or a great conversation or a great game of golf, you need to be engaged in what is happening. Suppose you're playing tennis, and instead of keeping your attention on the ball, you focus on all the thoughts inside your head. Am I holding the racket correctly? Are my feet in the best position? If your focus is on your thoughts rather than the ball, then what quality of game are you likely to play? Chances are not very good. Suppose you're making love, but instead of focusing on your partner, you're giving all your attention to thoughts in your head. How am I doing? Is she really enjoying this? What does he think of my body? If you're all caught up in your thoughts, you won't find it a satisfying experience. When we say that someone looks confident, we have no idea what they are thinking or feeling, but we can observe what they are doing. And one thing you'll always notice about confident people, they are very engaged in whatever they are doing. When they're socializing, they're thoroughly absorbed in the conversation. When they're playing sport, they're totally involved in the game. When they're writing a report, they're completely focused on the task. Having negative thoughts is not the problem. The problem is that we are disengaged from our experiences. When we keep our attention on what we are doing and remain fully engaged in the task, then it doesn't matter what our minds say. Now pause for 20 seconds and notice what your mind is saying. Is it enthusiastic, or is it full of questions and objections? Here is a common concern. Thinking is very useful. Surely you're not suggesting I let go of all my thoughts. Not at all. If a thought is helpful, then it makes sense to use it. However, if thoughts are unhelpful, distracting us from the task at hand, it makes sense to let them come and go. Another common question. But when I'm in a challenging situation, it's hard to let my thoughts come and go. Isn't there an easier way? Learning mindfulness skills is much the same as learning to ride a bike. It may seem hard at the beginning, but it gets easier with practice. The golden rule of the confidence game is this: the actions of confidence come first. The feelings of confidence come later. Only when we can do something well are we likely to feel confident. But it is almost impossible to do something well if we are not engaged in what we are doing. So how do we engage? We pay attention. Mindfulness means paying attention with openness, curiosity, and flexibility. Openness. We are open to what is happening, even if we don't like it. Curiosity. We actively seek to discover something new in our experience. Flexibility. We can narrow our focus to thread a needle or broaden it to take in a sunset. So how about we try this out right now? I invite you to stop listening for a few moments and simply notice what you can hear. Listen to these sounds as if you were a musician appreciating great music. Please do this now for 30 seconds. Next, I invite you to look around and notice 5 things you can see. Look at each object as if you were an artist studying a famous masterpiece. Notice the shape, color, texture, and shading. Now sit up straight in your chair and notice the position of your body. Push your feet firmly into the floor, straighten your spine, and drop your shoulders. Take 30 seconds to scan your body from head to toe. Now do all of the above simultaneously. Put the book down, sit up straight, plant your feet firmly, and flexibly focus your attention from your body to what you can see to what you can hear. Please do this now for 30 seconds. So what happened? Did you become more present? When we're lost in a book, we lose touch with almost everything except those words on the page. But what if you were permanently lost in a book, walking around with your head literally buried in it? Engagement means that in much the same way as we can put down a book, we let go of the words inside our head and pay attention to other aspects of our experience. Life is like a magnificent stage show, and on that stage are all our emotions, memories, images, thoughts, and sensations. Mindfulness is like the lighting system. We can bring up the lights on any part of the show at any time so we can see all the details. Psychologists often refer to this as task-focused attention. If we want to perform any task well, our attention needs to be centered on whatever is relevant to the task. Negative self-judgments, predictions of failure, thoughts about not being good enough. These are not relevant parts of the stage show. We can dim the lights a little on those areas and focus the bright spotlights where they're needed. One of the best ways to practice this is mindful breathing. The practice of mindful breathing is thousands of years old. It's a simple but effective way to develop engagement and diffusion skills. Here are the instructions. Please read or listen to them twice, then give it a go. Find a comfortable position. Close your eyes or fix on a spot. Take some gentle, slow, deep breaths. Focus on emptying your lungs. Then allow them to fill by themselves. Observe your breathing as if you are a curious scientist who has never encountered anything like it before. Notice every little sensation, the air moving in and out of your nostrils, the rise and fall of your shoulders. Your challenge is to keep the spotlight on your breath. As you do this, let your thoughts float by like leaves on a stream. From time to time, your mind will hook you and pull you out of the exercise. This is natural and normal. Each time you realize you've been hooked, gently acknowledge it and refocus on your breath. Once your time is up, expand your awareness to engage with the world around you. 5 minutes is a good length of time to begin with. How did you go with the exercise? If you've never done anything like this before, you are doing well if you last even 10 seconds before you get hooked and pulled out of it. Mindful breathing is an excellent way to improve your ability to focus. But breathing is just the start. I'd like you to think of it as a versatile training tool to help you engage fully in every meaningful task in your life. When you're playing sport, writing that book, making love, giving that speech, instead of shining the spotlight on your breath, shine it on the task that you are doing. Engage fully in the experience and let your thoughts come and go like passing cars. Chapter 9. Smell the roses. It is a 20-minute march from your cramped, gloomy prison cell to the limestone quarry. Once there, you will slave away with your pick and shovel under the searing sun, your hands blistered and bleeding, your body drenched with sweat and plastered with dust. How would you feel if you were on that march, knowing what lay in store for you? In his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela described this march as a tonic. For 13 of his years in Robben Island prison, he did it every single morning. And as he did so, He engaged fully in his experience. He noticed the birds flying gracefully through the sky, the cool caress of the wind blowing in from the sea, and the fresh smell of the eucalyptus blossoms. He wasn't lost in thoughts about the hard work ahead of him or the miserable days behind him. He was living fully in the present moment. Fortunately, we don't have to be locked away in prison to appreciate the birds, the wind, and the flowers. If we stop rushing around on automatic pilot and use our five senses to connect fully with the world around us, we will find much more fulfillment. Yes, we all know the saying, "Stop and smell the roses," but how often do we actually do it? Many of my clients tell me they don't have time to practice all this stuff. But the beauty of mindfulness training is that you can do it anytime, any place. But throughout the day, there are all sorts of opportunities for practice without having to alter your daily routine. Engaging in your morning routine, you can turn any part of your morning routine into a mindfulness training session. Brushing your teeth, shaving, having a shower, or making breakfast. For example, if you're making a cup of tea, engage in every little step of the process, using all five senses. Notice all the different sounds involved. The crescendo of the kettle filling up, the sharp click of the on switch, the rumble of boiling water, the hiss of escaping steam. Notice all the different visual elements. The thick rush of steam spouting from the kettle, the misty swirls of steam rising from the water in the cup, the dark stream of tea diffusing through the hot water. Notice all the different body movements required. The effortless interaction of your shoulder, arm, hand, and eyes as you're lifting up the kettle. As you do this, see if you can discover something new, something you previously took for granted. Engaging in a chore, are there any dull, tedious, or mundane chores in your life? Things that you just have to do to make your life work. Common examples might include ironing clothes, doing the washing up, stacking the dishwasher, or putting out the garbage. Remember Seb, the taxi driver afraid to make love to his wife. Seb recognized that if he ever wanted to enjoy sexual activity again, he would have to learn how to engage fully in the process. So he chose to turn stacking the dishwasher into a mindfulness practice. I asked him to place in every single cup, plate, bowl, spoon, knife, and fork with the greatest of care. To put each item down gently, noticing the sound it made as it slotted into place. To notice the colors and patterns that food and drink have left on its surface. At our next session, Seb reported that he had tried this approach, and much to his surprise, stacking the dishwasher had turned into an engaging activity rather than a task of mindless drudgery. He said, "It's not like it's turned into fun, but it's different when I do it mindfully. I kind of get absorbed in it." Engaging in a pleasurable activity, we also miss out on many simple pleasures simply because we're too busy to stop and smell the roses. Each day, I invite you to practice mindfulness of at least 2 pleasurable experiences. If you're having a shower, use all 5 senses to engage in it. Notice the patterns of the droplets on the shower screen, the sensations of the water on your skin, the smell of the shampoo and soap. When you're eating dinner, pause for a moment before your first bite. Notice the different aromas of the various ingredients and the colors, shapes, and textures of the different foods. And as you eat that first mouthful, notice the tastes and textures in your mouth, as if you were a gourmet food critic who has never tasted a meal like this before. If you're hugging someone you love, notice the sensations in your body and the reactions in the face and body of your loved one. As you can see, there are countless quick and easy ways for busy people to develop mindfulness. And remember, you can put literally anything in the spotlight and practice sustaining your focus on it. So invent a few engagement practices of your own. Remember, every mindful moment makes a difference. The more practice we do, the less we'll wander off into. Psychological Smog Chapter 10. Psychological smog. I could hardly believe my eyes. I was walking through the Botanic Gardens in Melbourne, but I could have been just about anywhere. A few minutes earlier, I had been surrounded by magnificent trees. Presumably the trees hadn't moved, but now I could not see the slightest trace of them. The smog had obliterated everything. If you've ever been caught in smog, fog, torrential rain, or a blizzard, then you'll know how frustrating it is. It's hard to get where you're going when you can't see clearly. But when we get trapped inside our psychological smog, it's a different story. Psychological smog is what it sounds like. A thick cloud of thoughts which prevents us from seeing clearly or acting effectively. It takes many forms: worrying, blaming, fantasizing, rehashing old rejections, planning escapes, plotting revenge, daydreaming. And if we're not mindful, we can spend hours wandering fruitlessly through this smog, all the while missing out on our lives. But there's one thing we need to be clear on. The smog is not created by our thoughts. It is fusion with our thoughts that creates the smog. No matter how negative, unhelpful, or painful our thoughts might be, they will not create smog if we are diffused from them. But the more we fuse with them, the thicker the smog, and the more we lose contact with the world around us. The only way out of the smog is through engagement and diffusion. One of the most suffocating forms of psychological smog is worrying. We all worry to some degree, but the more habitual it becomes, the more it drains our vitality. It wastes time, saps energy, and gets in the way of effective action. There is a lot of research now which shows that trying to stop worrying usually just makes it worse. When we push away worrying thoughts, it generally leads to a rebound effect, where those thoughts return with greater frequency and intensity than before. So how then do we deal with the worry smog? Step 1. Be clear about what worrying is. Worrying does not mean having thoughts about bad things that might happen. We all have such thoughts. Worrying means fusing with those thoughts, holding on tightly to them, replaying them over and over instead of letting them go. Step 2. Identify the costs of worrying. The major cost of worrying is missing out on life. When we're all caught up in our worries, we are not psychologically present. We are disconnected from our here and now experiences. We miss out on interaction with our loved ones. We miss out on the food we are eating. Step 3. Unhook from reasons to worry. Another classic story I often hear is this: "But worrying helps me." The story usually goes that worrying is helpful for dealing with my problems or preparing for the worst. I reply that worrying is like riding a rickety old bicycle. It will get you from Sydney to Melbourne, but how long will it take you? If we want to effectively solve our problems or effectively make decisions for the future, worrying simply does not do the job. Instead of worrying, move to active planning or constructive problem solving using questions like these. What can I do to deal effectively with this situation? What actions could I take? If you can take effective action, do so. If you can't, then make room for your discomfort, diffuse from your worries, and engage in doing something meaningful here and now. Step 4. Distinguish worrying from taking care. Many people seem to think that worrying about their problems equates to taking care of their problems. But there is a huge difference. The former is useless, the latter invaluable. Worrying about your health, uselessly dwelling on scary stories about what might be wrong with your body. Taking care of your health, eating well, exercising, stopping smoking. Worrying about your finances, uselessly dwelling on scary stories about how little money you have. Taking care of your finances, starting a savings account, setting a budget, meeting with a financial advisor. Step 5. Diffuse from worrying itself. Our mind is like the world's greatest storyteller, and all it wants is our attention. And it knows that we pay attention when it tells us scary stories. So it's not going to suddenly stop doing that. but we can learn to let those worries come and go without buying into them. One simple technique is to notice and name. As soon as we become aware of worrying thoughts, we silently say to ourselves, "Here's worrying again," or more simply, worrying. Any mindfulness technique is helpful for escaping from any form of psychological smog. In the previous chapter, I talked about simple ways of developing mindfulness skills in everyday life. We're now going to tie all this into your major life goals. You've reached the end of the first part of the confidence gap, and while you've learned to distinguish between the right and wrong rules of confidence, you've only just begun the practical journey. If you're currently asking yourself, "How do I stop my mind from constantly generating predictions of failure and comparing me unfavorably to others? And how do I keep moving toward my goals when I have absolutely no motivation?" Then the next part is essential. In the upcoming chapters, Dr. Harris provides the missing tools, including why self-acceptance is the only workable foundation for enduring confidence, how to effectively stop wandering through the psychological smog of worry by using active problem-solving instead, and how to use the name technique to tame your fear by allowing and channeling its energy. If you're ready to learn these specific, high-value skills and begin living your life with genuine confidence, make sure to comment Part 2 and let us know you're ready to set out in this brave new direction.